Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Deep Cuts. If this is your first time viewing, thank you for viewing and thank you for joining in this conversation. I'm Antoine Reed, and today I have a special guest. It's David Gomes from Escobar Cigars. So I'm looking forward to this conversation because David and I have not met yet, and many of the people I've had on Deep Cuts I have met. So this is like a new conversation. So it's almost like a virtual trade show experience. So I'm looking forward to having this conversation and learning more about David and Escobar, because they definitely have been in the news a lot lately and very active on social media. So there's a lot to kind of discuss, obviously. So how are you doing, David? And just introduce.
I'm doing great. I appreciate you having me on today. It's kind of a rare platform to be able to talk about something I love a lot, which is cigars.
Yeah. So how did you, I guess, give a little intro to who you are and, how, what your background is, I guess, is a good place to start. I always say start at the beginning. So that's as beginning as we can get.
Sure. I'm just an old ball player from UCLA. So I came to Los Angeles to play ball and never went home. Grew up in Silicon Valley. So I kind of grew up with an entrepreneurial spirit, parents that were in startups. The whole world's a startup there. I did my own about 20 years ago, started a company that makes software for the United States military. That's where I kind of cut my feet and cut my feet in marketing and how I go about pushing product development and moving products out to the market. So I had some experience doing that, given the fact that I have loved cigars for a lot of years. I'm a big cigar guy. Been going down to Cuba and trying their cigars for a lot of years. Big fan of Cuban cigars. We started Escobar. I wanted something Cuban-esque, I call it, something similar to my favorite cigar, which is a Cohiba Bahique.
So tell us a little bit about Cuba and Cuban cigars, because we hear obviously all about it, but I can say probably a small fraction of people have actually smoked a Cuban cigar. So what did you like about it? What makes it different from, say, a Dominican cigar or a Nicaraguan cigar?
There's a lot of people that give you a lot more detailed answers on why they love Cuban cigars, but there's a litmus test, I say. You go to Cuba, you smoke a Cuban cigar, and you find yourself smoking it down to the absolute nub without ever thinking about it. It is just so good. Although tobacco yields have been a little bit iffy out of Cuba, they haven't done probably a real good job of resting their fields. And that's why Nicaraguan tobacco imports has overtaken Cuba and Dominican Republic, for that matter, over the last couple of years. So Nicaraguan cigar imports into the U.S. now the largest tobacco exporter would be Nicaragua now.
So when you said you wanted to take that Cubanist style or the vibe from that cigar and transfer it into your own brand, how do you go about doing that? Is it the blend of tobaccos that you use, or what is it?
Great question. You and I have talked briefly about this before, but I'm a really big fan of describing the cigars similar to fine wines. Never smoked a cigarette in my life, actually, which is odd, but I love cigars. I don't drink wine anymore, even though I grew up in the backyard of Napa Valley. I just can't handle the sugar as much anymore. But wine is an Opus One wine, for example, fantastic wine. It's not an Opus One grape that makes that wine. It's a blend of all the best grapes from that vintage that year that makes up the blend that makes up that fine wine. We could say the same thing about tobacco. Our master cigar craftsman is fifth generation Cuban. His family was part of that original exodus in 1959 from Cuba, where a lot of the Cuban cigar makers grabbed their seeds and they ran and they went to Nicaragua and Dominican Republic, but a lot of them went to Nicaragua. Our roller is fifth generation Cuban. His blend is family proprietary, and it is proofs in the pudding. It's a very fine cigar. We're doing great with it because it's a good cigar. We can market it with NAS all we want. If it's not a good cigar, it doesn't matter. And I think we nailed that one first.
So that brings us to the next question, which is, tell us about Escobar. Like, how did you come to found the company? How long has the brand been around? How did it all start?
Great question. We love to tell this story too, because my business partner, the co-founder, Mike McNaughton, he and I were on a trip to Nicaragua just to kind of check out beach properties. His family bailed on him on 4th of July. This is like 3 years ago. So we started this about 3 years ago. Michael lost me in the back of a factory somewhere in the middle of Nicaragua for a couple hours. He couldn't find me. He comes, finds me in the back of a factory, rum bottles everywhere, cigars. We're trying different cigars. He walks in and goes, we got a new company, Mike. So it's just something we really wanted to do. And it really was predicated on that really fine cigar. Without that cigar, we've got nothing.
What was it like when you started the company? Like you said, it kind of, you weren't really expecting to have your own brand. So what did you go through at the beginning to kind of get it going and to get yourself kind of invested and really into the idea of going from being just a cigar smoker to suddenly being a cigar brand owner, which are two completely different things?
Yeah, very different things. You're right. It's a big transition to make that. And I'm not sure we had the idea, making this into a full-blown brand when we did it. It was just, I hesitate to say, but maybe even hobbyish in the beginning 3 years ago. And we ordered a bunch of inventory. The cigar was great. We took it back home into the States here and started marketing it to people that really knew cigars and liked cigars, up to and including Nas. And the feedback, and I've been developing products for most of my career, the feedback, I've never had a product developed in my career up until Escobar where the feedback was almost 100% unanimous, like, wow, great cigar. It never happens in product development. It's very rare. Most of the time, somebody's always, it's okay. There's always going to be somebody at the center. But it was pretty unanimous. And we really thought we had something tremendous in the quality of the cigar. Based on that feedback, it just started blowing up. We figured there's going to be a better way to market this. And with the name of the cigar being Escobar, and that being one of Nasir Jones's monikers, his musical monikers, we thought it was a match made in heaven. So we wanted to go after a partnership with him, and it is a full equity partnership. He is a full owner with us, a co-partner with Mike and I in Escobar, and we couldn't ask for a better partner. He's been fantastic.
And so you just met Nas, or you just kind of presented this idea to him. And you just kind of presented the idea, say, hey, it's Escobar, you're Nas, this seems to go hand in hand. You've already musically made the link up, let's do it. Is that how the conversation basically went, or is it more involved? Pretty
much. I mean, we had an initial meeting with his business partner. And by the way, I can't say enough about the business acumen of Nas and his team. As you know, original investors in Dropbox, Lyft. I mean, he's the quintessential entrepreneur in my mind. And meeting with his business folks, and that's when I was really impressed by his business team. Like, they saw the immediate fit. They saw something that could be really cool. They were very impactful in us rebranding. So we did a rebranding when when Nas came aboard as an equity partner. And we're really happy with the branding now. I mean, the branding improved. He wanted something, kind of jokingly, he said he wanted something that would outcool Jay-Z's champagne.
So when, I think in the cigar industry, we're used to seeing lots of different celebrities come into the cigar thing, and I don't know if this is like, other people haven't noticed this, but they come in, they kind of put their face to it, and then slowly but surely they trickle out for some reason, and then they're not hardly involved. You don't see them with the product. How are you going to kind of ensure that Nas stays engaged in this product from start to finish, so that you can keep up this traction, basically?
We're not having a problem with that. It's a matter of how many cigars we need to get to Nas when he's out on tour, he's out doing his events. He's constantly he's bringing cigars with him. Cigars is very much part of his lifestyle. So it's not something we have to convince him into continuing to promote the brand. He loves cigars, and it's kind of part of his persona.
It's funny because I feel like you all have a second brand ambassador, which is DJ Khaled, because I've seen him post so much about Escobar in the last couple of weeks that you all have made the announcement. I'm on Instagram every morning, and of course with my job throughout the day, but I've seen Escobar pop up his videos all the time, and I'm like, there they go. I mean, this is becoming like you're building your own little niche. I think you need somebody like Rick Ross maybe next, or somebody. I was like, but you're building up a nice little niche of brand promoters. So have you seen like a bump from that, actually, from them doing all these posts about it? Or
well, I mean,
how
can you not have a bump from a guy like DJ Khaled posting with his number of followers? I mean, it's same with Nas, of course, but DJ Khaled, lots of love to DJ. We didn't ask him to do what he's done. He is just into it. He likes our brand. He's into it. So we're not having to convince him, or we're certainly not paying him. He loves it, man. So it's a good thing, and that's what we're out there to do, to kind of build relationships, and we want to make this fun. We want this to be a fun event for everybody, and so far it's been a lot of fun.
And I think the celebrity aspect is fun because you see so many celebrities putting their names and their brands to products, but they're typically not like cigars. Lots of celebrities go for the spirit, channel and clothing lines and stuff like that. And so what do you think? I mean, what's your opinion of celebrities, getting into tobacco? Because it can always be a touchy subject with their followers and stuff like that.
Great point. I'll lead you back to where we first got into the celebrity routine a little bit. Our first year before we were really publicly marketed, it was our old branding. We were asked 2 years in a row to go down. Our roller came up from Nicaragua to the Bahamas, and we rolled cigars on site for the Hero World Challenge PGA event and for Tiger Woods' personal party. So we were working directly with Tiger's team on that. And it went off brilliantly. I mean, there are thousands of people at these parties smoking cigars. I've never seen anything like it. And it really kind of put us on the map. People started to notice us from that. But back to your kind of convoluted relationship with sports, that's a good example. PGA can't advocate tobacco. Therefore, Tiger, for example, can't personally advocate tobacco. But, somebody like Nas or Cal, people like that are certainly not constrained by that. But some of the athletes are.
It's funny because I remember a couple of years ago, there was a famous now Cigar Aficionado cover with Nick Jonas. And it was such a to-do because here was this younger, musician guy who's up to that point. I mean, if you have really followed him on Instagram and stuff, you've seen that he smoked cigars with his brothers, Joe Jonas and Nick Jonas and everybody else and Kevin Jonas. But they all were smoking cigars before then. And then the Cigar Aficionado cover came along, and it was this big to-do because they were, parents were like, oh, my child looks up to Nick Jonas and he's smoking. But as you said at the beginning, smoking a cigar is a little bit different, obviously, than smoking a cigarette or any other tobacco product. So it just seems always interesting to me when celebrities do want to tip their toe in the cigar and tobacco realm.
Hold on 1 second. I am getting audio issues.
Okay.
Okay, you there?
Yeah. So I was just asking, about, the Nick Jonas controversy and, celebrities tipping their toe into tobacco. So it's just an interesting thing when they do feel the need to go in and get involved.
Oh, hold on 1 second.
Okay.
Getting audio issues. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
How about now?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Audio's out. Hey, Antoine?
Yeah.
Can I pop right back on the link?
Yes.
Okay.
For those watching, obviously this video will be up on YouTube soon, and also it will be on Facebook. Are you there?
I'm back. Got connection again. We got a little technical difficulty here. We're good.
It happens. So we're talking about the celebrity getting into tobacco, and you were telling us about how sometimes in their contracts they aren't able to get involved in that.
Like PGA and Tiger Woods, for sure.
Right.
Yeah, that was a really good example. You know, we don't have that limitation. We plan on an intentional push into professional athletics this year. We're hoping to get in the Super Bowl, some of the local professional football, basketball, NBA finals. Everybody sees LeBron or Steph Curry smoking a cigar after a championship. We'd like that to be an Escobar for sure. So working some of those sporting angles this year. Our director of marketing, Morgan Smith, is phenomenal making that push for that.
Do you have any intention maybe of, you know, as the brand goes on and you kind of introduce new lines and products, of maybe tapping in some other celebrities to have their own kind of Escobar line within the Escobar family?
It's possible. That's actually, it brings up a really good point, because there is a lot of expansion available in this market. What you're seeing in some areas that are limited, where we make our cigars in a town called Esteli, Nicaragua. It's right on the border of Honduras. It's a beautiful volcanic valley that's very similar to the Vinales Valley in Cuba, where they grow a lot of the tobacco in Cuba. Rich volcanic soil, which is required for tobacco. Honduras, a lot of the big cigar factories like Padron, Rocky Patel have factories on both sides of the border. They have a Honduras brand and a Nicaraguan brand. We could see offering a Honduran cigar down the road, Dominican cigar down the road. Those are some of the things we're considering. But you mentioned that the spirits and celebrities. Spirits and celebrities is easy. Launching your own cigar brand is nearly impossible. It's very, very difficult. So there's a barrier to entry to a normal celebrity wanting to come in and have their own cigar brand.
And I think what else is difficult is simply launching a cigar brand like right now. But I know you launched a couple of years ago, but you were still probably dealing with the FDA situation as it was kind of blossoming into what it is today. So how have you all had to navigate kind of the regulatory and paperwork? Because I know that that's part of the process, but it's also part of the process that doesn't get talked about a lot.
Well, it's one of those things that I just discussed, a barrier to entry. That is certainly a barrier to entry. Because this cigar brand it's grandfathered in under the FDA rules. So that's very hard to do. If you cigar a new brand, you have to put it through a brand new FDA process, which is a lot of money and a lot of time. So it's not as simple for most people to do this.
Right. And, you know, I think, how are you reaching out to retailers with this product? Because obviously you're reaching the consumers, which is good, because I always tell people you need that kind of full circle event. You have to have your product, which you have, then you have to have the retailer buy-in, but you also have to have the consumers to kind of feed back into the retail, and that feeds back into the manufacturing, because then the more consumers you have demanding your product, then the more you can pump out to the retailers.
Great question. From our social media campaign, great things have happened. For example, yes, we're reaching consumers, but among those consumers are hundreds and hundreds of cigar shop owners that are coming in saying, I'd like to be set up for wholesale accounts. I'm a cigar store. And we have a particular process we put them through to verify that they're legitimate wholesaler, reseller with tobacco resale licenses, which is required. But we've been spending this last month setting up hundreds of cigar shops around the country and the world for that matter. You know, we took a 65 box order from Ivory Coast 2 weeks ago from a new distributor in Ivory Coast. So our reach is large right now.
I guess that's another good question. It's like, how do you take your brand international? Because I think it's probably a whole nother challenge, just getting traction here in the US, but then to be international. So what's that like?
That's a fantastic question, because again, from that reach we just discussed, I can't tell you how many people in the EU, the UK, are saying, hey, I want to order a box, want to order a box, want to order a box. And the limitations of us just shipping directly, we could certainly do it, but the customs restrictions, it makes it exceptionally pricey, really difficult. So we are in the process of, and I can't tell you who, but with several large brokers in the Geneva, UK, and the EU areas that would actually distribute through Russia, EU, UK. There's a whole system being set up right now as we speak. So as we go into this next year, we should be fully deployed in the international markets.
Now tell us about the actual product. Like, how did you develop the current blend blends that you have out now?
5th generation Cuban recipe. We didn't reinvent a blend. This is a blend that we brought along with our master cigar craftsman. And again, this is 5th generation recipe, Cuban seed. There are various elements of the cigar that aren't all Cuban or Cuban-esque, but based on Cuban seed, grown in Nicaragua. We even use an Ecuadorian wrapper and a Mexican wrapper on our different cigars. So the blend does require a different binder, wrapper, and filler. And what we use, I'd rather not say, but it's a proprietary blend.
Awesome. What's been your experience interacting with other brands within the industry? Because the cigar industry is very communal. So I'm sure you're not your own island, and that you've had some interaction with one or two of the other brands out there.
Yeah, that's another great question, because that's exactly what happens. I mean, I was down in Mexico City about a month ago, working with some potential partners out there, which would distribute one of the largest distribution companies in Mexico. And the head of Davidoff Mexico came to the meeting, wants to be involved. I got a call from Davidoff New York, Davidoff Geneva, wanting to work with us on this too. So yeah, I think there's more cooperation than I expected. I expected more competitive nature. I'm seeing a lot more cooperation.
And that's, I always tell people that the industry at times can seem very divided, but it is, like I said, very relationships. It's almost like a Marvel movie, like Avengers or something, because you'll see different big iconic people from different brands all working together and all talking together. If you're at a trade show, they are sitting together, smoking together. So I'm glad to hear that you already are kind of becoming part of that kind of network of cigar businesses kind of coming together.
Oh yeah, I mean, again, I mentioned Morgan Smith, who runs all of our digital marketing campaigns, and he has been on top of the communication coming on social media. It's been tremendous, and that interface with other cigar people, cigar makers, cigar people in the cigar business is all coming together through social media. A lot of that through his efforts there, and it's been helpful to have that level of cooperation.
And with that discussion about social media, like, how do you plan to market your brand outside of social media? Or is social media kind of at the core of what you're doing? Because the cigar industry is very traditional in that you still have people who do print ads, you still have people who look for podcasts to kind of do kind of radio commercial spot type things. So it's kind of all over the place. So where are you with the marketing plan for Escobar?
Without disclosing too much, because I don't want to tell everybody our roadmap for the next year. But yeah, it's social media is our digital marketing plan. Our marketing plan goes well beyond a digital marketing plan. The digital marketing plan is the cornerstone of what we do, and certainly the cornerstone of our B2C, or business to consumer, direct to consumer business. But as you mentioned, the old school mentality in the cigar business is actually very prevalent, and it's really prevalent in the B2B, the business to business aspect of things. So, the trade shows, we'll be going to all the big trade shows next year. We've gone to a couple last year. That's where all the big vendors and players are. Not so much to consumers, because I think we handle that through our social media campaigns, but our B2B is traditional old school marketing.
I guess I'm wondering, with Nas being involved, and we're talking about the traditional aspects of the cigar industry, I know sometimes the industry can get very picky, kind of grandmothery about certain, not wanting to be associated with certain activities or whatever. Do you have any of those concerns, or do you think people are going to be like, they're just going to look at the brand and to see the quality and, not worry about, this being associated with a type of a genre of music or whatever?
I think cigars goes well beyond one genre of music. I think cigars, and I think Morgan has pointed this out to me many times, cigars bring people together. You know, in my opinion, cigars bring people together. You go to a cigar lounge anywhere in this country, sit down and smoke a cigar, you're meeting a cross section of America in every cigar lounge, and we love that. And what we're getting on our business, I don't think we're catering to one genre of people or groups of people, whether it's cigar aficionados or cigar novices. I think we got a pretty open tent.
And before we had started this broadcast, you were telling me about some of the future plans for Escobar. So, like, do you have any more cigar lines coming out, or just products in general under the Escobar name? Like, what are you getting ready to play in and get involved with?
There are a couple things on our plate. I can mention them at a high level. I'm not going to get into too much detail, but one of the big elements we plan to launch next year is going to be the Escobar blunt wraps.
Wow.
Very, very hard to get product here in the States and elsewhere. And even Mexico, for example, is planning to legalize cannabis next year federally. The blunt wrap market, we're not saying we're getting into the cannabis market, but the what's lacking in the market right now, people take a 7-Eleven backwoods cigar from 7-Eleven, they rip out the middle and they use that as their wrapper because they want pure tobacco leaf, even though that's not a great quality tobacco leaf, but it's still pure tobacco leaf. People can't get those, and they certainly can't get it at a high quality. So we'll plan on launching that probably in the fourth quarter next year. We're very excited about that. Something we're going to begin development on next year, plan to launch probably the next year after that. It's going to be the Escobar Ultra Blacks, which is going to be our aged premium version cigar. So even though our cigars are a premium hand-rolled cigar, I would give you an equivalent of, I love a Padron cigar, for example. Padron cigar, their regular cigars are great cigars. Their Padron 1926 is a phenomenal cigar. And there's a difference, and I'm willing to pay more for it because it's better tobacco, it's aged, it takes longer, and it's more expensive manufacturing. So we plan to launch that, but we plan to start aging them next year, not selling them until the next year. These are going to be well aged and definitely a premium blend. So those are the two things we plan on launching in the next year and a half.
And with Nas, at some point, do you ever feel like you might dabble into some other markets or industries, and maybe it's not under Escobar though, but maybe you might get involved in somehow into the cannabis industry? Because I'm seeing a lot of celebrities wanting, for some reason, not to get involved in tobacco, but they will have their own cannabis-based product brand. Do you think maybe, or do you?
I doubt it. Cannabis market, the people that do the cannabis market are very specialized regulatory aspects of it, specialized packaging. And coming in as a Me Too latecomer doesn't really excite me, but you never know. I think this is more important to stay within our lane. A blunt wrap is probably the only crossover, kind of crosses over to the cannabis market, but is clearly just a tobacco product.
Now, obviously, you're very passionate about cigars.
Love cigars.
With me, with things that I'm passionate about, I always am very protective of those things, and I don't always want to cross them with work, because it's very hard, a tight line where if you do something, you don't want to get to the point where you're like, now I'm sick of it. So how do you find that balance between remaining passionate about the cigars, but also about, knowing that it is work and making it a business?
Let me give you an analogy to answer that. Years ago, one of my first trips to Cuba, I did a tour of the Partagas factory. For those of you who don't know, Partagas makes Cohiba, Montecristo, the Partagas brand, of course. They're a nationalized brand in Cuba, but wonderful cigar factory. And we were doing a tour of the cigar factory, and there was one guy in, I don't know, you call him quality assurance, I suppose. He was in the back smoking one of every lot of cigar that came out. I remember years ago saying, I want that guy's job. And all of a sudden the other day, I got sent a couple new inventory samples from a new inventory order, which I smoked because I probably have the best palate for cigars in the company. And all of a sudden I realized I got my dream job and I didn't even know it.
And what's that like?
Yeah, so I'm not bored of it. No, I don't think any of us are remotely bored with the business. It's just a lot of fun. This is a lot of fun.
And I think that's a key point, is that you have to have fun with what you're doing, because I know that there's so many people, and there was some discussion on Instagram this past week about people in general, I guess, but about keeping that passion for it, so that every day kind of feels like that first day, like you said, at the dream job. Like, how do you keep that passion and that interest going without burning out? And I think it's hard for a lot of people.
Sometimes, but I did military software for 20 years and didn't get bored of that either. So I think if finding passion in what you do, finding new challenges within the market you're working, it's just always the key. Trying to get better at something today. I'll try getting better at this tomorrow. For example, I'm at my age, I'm taking a full Spanish class right now because I got tired of not being fluent and dealing with the factory. And it's like, I felt embarrassed by it. So, new challenges, I'm taking on new challenges. That's kind of part of the fun.
Besides the learning of the Spanish part, what's something that you're actually really excited to learn about when it comes to cigars that you didn't know before?
It's funny. I learned a little trick all the time. Last time I was at the factory, our master craftsman looks at me and he goes, "Try this." And I take a bit of cigar and he goes, "Blow some out through your nose." And I go, "Well, why?" He goes, "Trust me." So I blew a little bit out through the nose. It opens the complete palate, opens the palate up. You taste new flavors you've never tasted before. So I learned something every day. I've got a lot of great people around me. I'm learning new marketing techniques, blending it with my knowledge of old world marketing techniques. I'm learning a lot about cigars. I'm learning a lot about new blends. And when we go with this ultra black blend, I promise you, this is going to be one of the best cigars that I will have ever smoked, or I'm not going to get out the door.
And I know another part of the industry also is the collaboration part. Like, once you kind of get into the industry, it's almost like you have to do your due diligence to get your brand to a certain point, but then it kind of opens up the doors to collaborate with different factories and different personalities and different blenders. Is there anybody that you're really excited about potentially working your way up to the point of doing a collaboration with?
Oh, no, you kind of caught me on that one. I'm not sure I have an answer on somebody I'd really like to collaborate with. I mean, there's so many
brand, that you want to kind of cross paths with and see what would the collaboration be like, between these two brands?
I mean, I think the collaborations we're working on right now are more business related, like with the major power brokers of cigars in Geneva, for example. Geneva is kind of like the central hub of cigars in the EU. So those kind of relationships, which are a learning experience in their own. I've never developed cigar partnerships before in my career, so this is a new one. Doing in the EU is phenomenally exciting. Opening up channels to Ivory Coast, Africa, for example. It's like, I never thought I'd open up a supply channel to Ivory Coast, Africa. It's just, everything's new every day. It's kind of a lot of fun.
In terms of the kind of cigars that you personally like, what's the last cigar that kind of really, besides the Escobar cigar, of course?
Yeah, got me on that one.
I knew it was going there. So what's the last cigar outside of Escobar that kind of really kind of took you by surprise?
Cohiba Bahique in Cuba, the ones right off the factory floor. Those, like I said earlier, it's like the litmus test. It's plain. There are cheaper cigars I've smoked before where I put it down like a quarter of it left and I'm done. You will never do that with a great cigar, not ever. You don't even think about it. You're down to the nub. It's almost like you need a roach clip to hold it because you're not going to give up that last puff. It's that good. That's how I felt about the last Cohiba Bahique I smoked in Cuba.
And that brings me to one of my questions I always like to ask different personalities in the industry. What, in your opinion, makes a good cigar?
Great question. It's got to have, the draw is perfect. So I've had some really good cigars that were poorly rolled in Cuba before, for example, and the roll matters. So you can take the best tobacco in the world and roll it poorly, and it's a poor cigar. The draw is poor, and therefore the taste is poor. So it always starts with the blend. Then it goes to the quality of the tobacco, which clearly is part of the blend. And then it's the rolling techniques. It's got to be perfectly rolled. It's for a cigar to get saleable, it's a 6-month process. If you count the growing and fermentation, you're probably talking over a year. So it's a long process if you really think about it. And every part of it, from the fermentation to the drying to the aging to the rolling, all equally important. And of course, is equally as important as the components themselves, so the blend itself.
And what part of the cigar making process do you enjoy the most? Is it coming up with the concept of the brand? Is it actual testing out with different prototypes? Is it the rolling? I don't think it'll probably be the rolling, because I went to Davidoff's factory and we had to do a rolling exercise, and it was like, for me, like the worst experience ever.
It's hard, right? It's hard.
It was definitely challenging, and I remember saying, I never want to do this this part again. That's not my thing. So which
those
part
people
for
work
you?
very hard. Those rollers work very, very hard. Those people are very skilled and they work very hard. When we go back to the factory, we really try to give back when we're there. It's very important. We just don't take from a community. We want to give back, and so we spend a lot of time. We make sure our rollers are some of the highest paid rollers in SLE. We make sure they're well fed, good working environment. This is all very important to us. Then a secondary aspect, we haven't really gotten into this, but we support the local orphanages in Nicaragua. Part of what we do is supporting some of the orphanages in Nicaragua, the children of Nicaragua that are untended, uncared for. These are the people that mean a lot to us. So that's part of our give back at Escobar, by the way.
And I think that's a good topic to talk about, is this social responsibility, which I think is the technical term for it.
Absolutely.
Because you're always wondering, I guess some brands, I know a lot of brands in the cigar industry that do it, like, Fuente and JC Newman have the Cigar Family Charitable Foundation. You have other brands that continually give back. You got Cigars for Warriors. You have Drew Estate, and different brands outside of Drew Estate also supporting Cigars for Warriors. So it's that social responsibility that I don't think gets talked about enough in the cigar industry, because I think, whenever you hear about in the main news, it's usually, all doom and gloom, and, they're trying to get your kids hooked. And it's not any of this, like, what are they doing out, to help the communities that they're in?
Well, the community of Nicaragua is very similar to Cuba in a way. They're some of the happiest people. I mean, they're poverty stricken, but I was always amazed in Cuba that some of the most poverty stricken people, some of the happiest people I've ever seen. It's just a really good reminder that it doesn't take money to be happy. These people are happy regardless. And the responsibility, the aspect of what we do, we come into Nicaragua and we've created a growing brand. Okay. And that doesn't mean anything to me if I know there are a bunch of kids in that city that don't have, the priest called me from the orphanage last year. He goes, they don't have any play balls for the playground. They don't have any crayons, coloring books. So we brought just boxes and boxes of supplies, so just simple things. So yes, and probably will create a charitable foundation down the road. But right now, this is kind of a grassroots, simple give back. This is just making sure every orphanage we can get to is well supplied, have things they need, hair ribbons for the girls. Sometimes it's little tiny things. It doesn't take much to make a lot of people happy.
Yeah, and it's like you said, I think it's important for companies, though, to build in social responsibility to their business plan in some way.
And we have, yeah.
Yeah, and definitely. So, what's been your experience? I always have to be careful about how I ask this question, but what's been your experience coming into the cigar industry now as a brand owner? Like, now you kind of get to see behind the curtain a little bit, because I think a lot of cigar smokers probably go to one or two websites, they see the press releases, and they follow the brands on social media. They see what looks like a very fun party atmosphere all the time, like you're always in some cigar lounge smoking cigars and kicking it back and at this big party with all these different personalities. But what's it been like? Like, was there anything about the industry, like as a brand owner, that surprised you, that made you go, wow, I had no idea it was really like this?
Well, we struggle sometimes. The supply chain in Nicaragua could be difficult if you don't have mitigation strategies in place. So that part surprised me. There are always going to be people that try to, we jokingly refer to it as the Nicaraguan mafia that seem to control cigar boxes and cigar rings in Nicaragua. We've got mitigation strategies for that, thankfully. But, they can't control the cigars, but they control the boxes. They can control the cigars. And, there's a couple of surprising things in there.
I've never heard about that, and I never thought about it. It makes sense, though, that, because you watch TV shows and soap operas and primetime shows. I'm all a TV person, Dallas and Dynasty and all that kind of stuff. So it seems like something that would happen on them. Like, well, they may have oil, but we're going to control the oil barrels and the shipping, shipping ships and stuff like that. So it seems funny that you say that, because now you're like, wow, like, yeah, I guess that, if we really wanted to, kind of control the market there, you would, kind of, like you said, look at the box situation or the labels and kind of put a little squeeze on that.
Yes, that's a way to do it. If you can't control the main product, you control the ancillary products, and you now control the main product. But we didn't allow that to happen. I think that's why we're doing a lot better than some in the industry down that are suffering on the supply chain side right now. There are some suffering going on. There's a lack of a filler. There's a shortage of filler. The shortage of cedar boxes, and a lot of that artificially controlled and difficult, but not some of it isn't. We've gotten strategies around it, so we're truly a global. We assemble things, and if the cigars are made in Nicaragua, we assemble them in boxes outside of Nicaragua. Who cares? Still Nicaraguan product.
How did the pandemic affect your brand and your business?
A lot more people started smoking.
So it was a not a good thing, but you saw the positive impacts of the pandemic.
Well, it was good timing for us, actually, because, we couldn't do a lot. People were still smoking, but we were still pre-launched with NAS. We launched with NAS like 64 days ago. Doesn't mean that's when we launched the company. It's just that's when we launched our main marketing thrust. So before that, and we brought, NAS came aboard as an equity partner and wanted to redo the branding. Well, let's do it. In the middle of the pandemic, we had a whole lot of time to redo the branding. It helped.
So definitely, because I know a lot of cigar companies have, or I should say tobacco companies, more so than cigar companies, but tobacco companies have been releasing their 2020 financial reports and such, and all of them have reported having that kind of bump in sales because of the pandemic.
I would almost call it pre-sales for us. So it wasn't really relevant for us. We weren't, we were selling a few boxes here and there, but we were still building up the market. We were building up the plan to launch. We just weren't cutting off sales before that, but we were building up to launch. So our day one was really 60 days ago, essentially.
And talk about the supply chain issue, because we kind of hear it being danced around in the industry, but so in a broad terms, like, what's going on with that, and what do you think we have to look forward to in like the near future with is it getting better, or is it getting worse, or what's going on with it?
I'm more concerned about worldwide shipping challenges than anything else. That's probably the bigger challenge that everybody's going to face, and nobody has an advantage over anybody else on. That's just the way it is. As far as the other supply side items I talked about, such as filler or cigar boxes, there's ways around that. That's not stopping us up at all. I'm not going to get into too much into the specific mitigation strategies, because then it won't be an advantage for us anymore. But we have a few ways that we're kind of beating our competitors to the punch on the supply side.
So do you think the supply chain issue is going to get worse than what it is now? Because I know it's a big issue now. Is it going to?
I think that the shipping challenge is probably going to be very relevant challenge for probably another 6 months. The shortages, I think, there's ways around that right now. So that will continue to be an issue on some of the tobacco not all tobacco, just certain parts of the cigar, the certain tobacco parts. There's been a shortage of crop yields were down across the world, things like that. But there's ways around that. It's not slowing us down right now.
Now, also as a not new brand, because you've obviously been around for a bit now, but as a brand, and you look at the industry where it is right now, do you have any big concerns as a brand owner?
Not really. The biggest concern I have is still the shipping containers, outside of LA Harbor, for example. It's a good time not to be buying Chinese components. I'll tell you that. If somebody was relying on Chinese components for something, it just makes things a little bit harder.
Like federal tax wise or flavor bans or any of that stuff? Does that stuff not phase you right now?
No, it's more about the cargo ships, sitting around LA Harbor, not being able to get in harbor. So the stuff coming from China is typically going to enter through LA Harbor. And I think, anybody watching the news knows the issues we have with the public harbors right now.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, though, when they think about the cigar industry in particular, they may think about things coming from Dominican Republic or, so down here, and they may not make that connection with what's going on, in the LA area. So this
true.
What do you like? Just tell us what aspect of that situation that's there right now, how does that impact cigars? Because like I said, they think about cigars from South America, or they think about cigars from Cuba, or and they don't think cigars there in California is gonna from that shipping situation is gonna be an issue. So they're not even thinking about that sometimes.
Well, you got to look at it component by component. For example, our cigars themselves shipping from Nicaragua directly to our warehouse in Florida, and that's, by the way, that's where our shipping warehouse is in Florida, near Miami, Delray Beach. Those are flown over, so when they're completed on the factory floor, we probably have them within 4 days in Miami. So that's not a problem. There's no problem on that supply side. But let's say I didn't want to pay the exorbitant prices for cigar rings from the Nicaraguan cigar ring makers, and I order those from China for pennies a piece for the same quality. Well, that's going to be shipped on a boat from China typically. There lies the problem. So if you're going to have anything coming by slow boat, especially into the West Coast, it's going to be a problem.
Wow. So we might want to brace ourselves for at least half of 2022 being a little bit kind of continue to be a little bit unstable in terms of getting product in, is what you're saying.
Certainly. Also, depending on where the product's coming from. Nicaragua is less of a problem. Outside components outside of Nicaragua are a little bit more of a problem right
now. And earlier you mentioned that Escobar is going to be at some trade shows this year. So which trade shows are you planning to be at, so that people can kind of put you all on their stop by list?
Well, the two big ones for us, again, I don't think we're not going to go to well, we may attend, but we're not going to go present at the shows like the Big Smoke, for example. The Big Smoke is really designed for consumers. Mm-hmm. And I don't think we're having a problem reaching consumers. Where we want to attack our trade show thrust this year is going to be in two trade shows mostly. One is the PCA event in July in Las Vegas. Those are mostly that's kind of a B2B show, which is what we want right now, international and domestic B2B. The international version of that, which we missed this year because it got canceled due to pandemic, is the one in Dortmund, Germany in November.
Intertabac.
So Intertabac, thank you. Intertabac in November will be our big threat. We really would have loved to have done it this year, if it had gone on this year, because it would have really kicked us off into next year early. But like I said, we've got a couple partnerships with a couple Geneva-based, UK-based companies that should get us by internationally for that. But the Intertabac will really expand that in November.
I guess I know we're talking a lot about international stuff, which is kind of fun because that's definitely not the direction I thought we would go in, but that's great because I love unexpected diversions. But how do international cigar smokers differ from those here in the U.S. from your experience?
Our international smokers are still fans of Nas. They're still fans of DJ Khaled. So we're getting a lot of consumers in international countries saying, "How can I get your cigars?" Okay. Getting them to direct is just not a viable policy going forward. It's going to get caught up in customs. It's going to get seized. You have to have a proper route through the international communities. And those routes are through those authorized importers. Like we're nurturing down in Mexico now, like we are nurturing in Geneva, like we're nurturing in the UK. We go to Intertabac, that'll just expand that exponentially.
In terms of Escobar and the sizes of cigars that you sell, because I know sizes is in this industry, size sometimes does matter, and you see a lot of big ring gauge stuff now. You see lots of I think the kind of common size is either a Toro or Robusto. Like, how are you all kind of approaching choosing the right size for your cigars and not going crazy and just having like a size, like every size under the sun?
Well, we do okay with that right now. I mean, we offer 10 different types of cigars now. So we offer 5 Maduro and 5 natural types: Robusto, double Corona, Churchill, double Toro Gordo, and one of my favorites is a Disquindido Romeo, which is a double-ended torpedo. A lot like the.
And how is there a particular size that's doing better than the other ones?
You know, that is a very good question. And this, as much as I know about cigars, this answer still amazes me. Every roll tastes different. Mm-hmm. I can't explain why. I don't have a logical reason to tell you why it's so radically different. But the difference, like this is the 60 ring gauge double Toro Gordo, one of my favorites, which is similar to the Mexique. It has a different flavor than the same Maduro if it was a double Corona or a Robusto. And I love those flavors too. And they all have different flavors. So I kind of go through all of them all the time. I don't really have a favorite of our rollers because they all taste different.
Is there a particular tobacco that you like to gravitate towards in a cigar, or are you kind of like a free for all?
No, like I said, the blend is most important. So, you know, if there's a particular aspect of a blend that works, I don't know. A particular aspect of the blend. There's not one tobacco in there that I would point to. It's the combination that makes it good.
In terms of future, I know we're getting down to like the 10-minute mark. So in terms of like the future, obviously Escobar is a very inclusive brand, which I think is important because the industry is far more inclusive and diverse than I think you know, what it looked like in ads and media maybe even 5 years ago. So how do you plan to get more, you know, get your product into the hands of more women, into, you know, like I said, in different venues? Like, what's the plan? Like, are we going to see like product placement? Like, are we going to see Escobar in a Cardi B or Megan Thee Stallion video anytime soon to make it cool?
I mean,
like, what is it? Like, what's going on?
We're certainly going to try. I'm sure Morgan's on this call right now, and he's probably he is absolutely trying to work with the women in the business too. But I think we're both amazed when we sit back and think about this. We see the traffic on our social media. Women love cigars. We love it. There are a lot of women fans of cigars. I mean, there are cigar groups, women's cigar groups, different ethnicities within women's cigar groups. I mean, it is kind of all inclusive. It's a little bit of everybody, and it's fantastic. We love it.
You know, I have a friend in the industry named Erica. I don't know if you know her. She runs the Lounge Experience podcast. Her and
Morgan
Amy.
May, I don't know.
So both of them are like, they know far more about cigars than I could ever probably learn in my lifetime. They are beyond cigar experts, and they can tell you everything. So I always think about them.
Pretty cool,
because,
right?
Yeah, because because like I said, they know things, and I think about people. There's a cigar blender named Indiana Ortez. I don't know if you've seen her on Instagram or know her, but she knows, obviously she's doing some great blends, and she's released some great products in recent years. So women really are like at the center point of the whole industry. Like, they make things happen. And whenever I talk to brand owners, they always say, like, remember, if you ever visit a factory, you know, our factories are full of women are making the products, so they know
Absolutely.
more about the tobacco and the manufacturing process than anybody.
I would venture to say that women are some of our best rollers, actually.
So what do you see as the future of Escobar? What do you want to see this brand? I know this is like the college essay question, but like, where do you see your brand in like, a year from now and then 5 years from now?
I mean, we want to blow this thing up. We want to put an Escobar in as many hands as we can. We think it's a good product. Therefore, we want to put it in people's hands. We want to make it about the experience. We want to make this about a luxury experience available to anybody. So you don't have to be wealthy. You don't have to be a particular demographic. If you like cigars, welcome to our tent. We want to make this social and a social experience.
So as a sort of elevator pitch, what's, for somebody who's never seen Escobar, maybe for whatever reason they're not fans of Nas, what's your pitch for them? Why should they try this brand?
Smoke this cigar. I will guarantee you'll like it. That's really all we have to do in this brand. Is like this becomes an easy pitch to people. Like when we bring it to a cigar shop, say, hey, try a couple, call us back if you want to carry them. They call us back every damn time. Like, this is fantastic. Where can we get it? How can we get it? Tell me what to do.
What are the tasting notes for your cigar?
Tasting notes?
Yeah, like what do people, I know in the industry people like to say tasting notes are, you could taste a little bit of cocoa or stuff like that. Like, do you all have that, or is it just kind of try it and find out for yourself what it is?
Yeah, the Maduro blend and the natural blend have slightly different flavors. Natural has a little bit more leathery, a little bit cinnamon. Maduro has a little bit more of the cocoa chocolatey flavor to it. I don't want to say that this is a chocolate cigar, so don't get me wrong, but it has just really subtle flavors. So yeah, we have a flavor profile. We have tasting notes. One of the things we do, we work with a local brands, for example, like this is a mezcal brand that we work with, and combining wines, mezcals, tequilas with the different cigars is something we're going to be doing next, and probably kind of launching some tasting notes on how these pairing notes with things, food and beverage pairing notes with cigars.
Well, awesome. Now, is there so obviously you're starting to get the brand into stores across the US. So is it easy to find? Do you have like a locator on your website where people can look up the retailer or find in their area where Escobar might be?
Not yet. What's happening now is, quite frankly, it's rare when somebody goes, hey, I need a box of cigars like in an hour. Where can I get it? Most people are like, hey, I need this for a birthday party this weekend. How can I get it? It's like, order it. It'll be on your doorstep 3 days later. That's what most people are doing. But occasionally we will get people on our customer support line, through which you can access through the website, saying, hey, do you have any local cigar shops in our area? And we will point them to the cigar shop that carries Escobar.
What are the social media channels people need to follow and website address that people need to follow to kind of get more information about Escobar?
Oh, I think our big one, EscobarCigars.com, EscobarCigarsPlural.com is our website. All of our social media handles on there, including our feeds, mainly our Instagram and Facebook feeds, which are also accessible from that website. But hashtag Escobar Cigar singular. Go to Instagram and you'll see all the latest feeds. We're pretty active on there right now.
And I'm pretty sure you'll see DJ Khaled and Nas in a new video promoting it, promoting the Escobar brand, which is, like I said, is probably really cool for you to kind of see your brand go from concept many years ago to finally being like, here you are getting promoted, like I said, by all these big music artists and personalities.
I mean, Nas is world famous. He's amazing. So is Khaled. And the fact that they love our cigars, I'm thrilled by it. I can't, there's nothing, it's going to leave a big smile on my face.
Awesome. Well, I guess my last question is, since, you're probably going to get asked this question a lot, but do you have a favorite Nas song or track that you jam out to?
I don't want to offend some of the other songs. So no, his last album though, I will refrain from answering that one. But I will say I was so damn impressed that he actually sang about Escobar Cigars on his last album. So I will point everybody to that song. And I actually don't remember the title offhand, but it's I think it's the last track on his last album.
And what was the album called?
I don't have it offhand though.
Okay, but we'll definitely have to check that out. But thank you so much for coming on today. Like I said, I know this. You said this is your first time doing a little interview about Escobar through video, so hopefully it wasn't that bad. I don't think. I think you'll probably get pulled into many more interviews than you think, because this is kind of the future of the media side of the industry. We're moving. I think we're slowly, finally moving away from just press releases, and we're getting into like the real everybody having their own interview and podcast kind of experience. So
great. And by the way, the name of that song with Escobar on it is "Nas is Good."
Thank you for the person on your team who helped inform us of what that is.
Morgan handles all that social media, so I'm a little bit one step removed. I'm more on the organizational side, but anytime you want to talk cigars, I'm all over it.
Well, thank you so much. Well, awesome. Well, I'd like to thank you for coming on today. And like I said, we'll have links to Escobar in the YouTube channel when I update that. And we'll tweet this out and Facebook it out and Instagram it. And so you'll probably see this video all over the place. But thank you so much for coming on and talking about Escobar and sharing a little bit of information about yourself as well.
Antoine, thank you for having me. Anytime. Thank you. Great questions too, by the way. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, for those of you who are watching, there's more interviews like this. You can go to deepcutslive.com. We have a YouTube channel. We're on Instagram. You can follow me on Instagram at editor.read. So editor.read. And we'll be back here next week with some new interviews. But thank you so much, David, and have a great day.
Thank you, Antoine.
No problem. Thank you.